Hello everybody. I'm Meghan Don, author of the newly released book Presence, Bringing the Soul into Dying and Grieving, a memoir and guide. I'm a death and dying guide, mentor, and ever evolving mystic of the earth and the heavens. I'm delighted to have with me in conversation today Jude Lally. Jude is a cultural activist reclaiming keening as a living practice rooted in creativity, ritual, and communal grief. Her work is a radical invitation to inhabit the landscape of grief, offering spaces to help work towards transforming grief through voicing grief, exploring it creatively, as well as engaging in rituals with the land and ancestral beings. As an artist and writer, she works with grief through doll making, painting, and weaving, and is currently writing her first book, The Ancestral Mothers of Scotland. She lives near Loch Lomond on Scotland's west coast and holds a Master in Science in Human Ecology from the University of Strathclyde. Welcome, Jude. Thanks for being here and for being willing to have this conversation.
Thank you, and thanks for inviting me.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. So, today we are going to be discussing mother loss and some encounters we have had along the dying journey, tending to our mothers, and what experiences we can share today, and to join with your own experiences as well for those who are listening. But before we begin, I would just like to take a moment to honor our ancestors, our guides, the land spirits, and ask that they journey with us today. And remembering that our ancestors, our loved ones, have not left us. They have just gone before us. That is an Irish proverb. So I think a very beautiful proverb that we haven't been left when our loved ones leave us. So to move through to their next realm of living, we don't need to feel so bereft. They've just gone before us into the realms that we also will be traveling into in our own way and time. So, Jude, your mother died quite recently. So, I want to walk tenderly with your soul, and ask if you would be willing to speak to one of the most touching moments you experienced while your mother was dying.
My mum had a difficult death actually. She died through esophageal cancer. There's no great good cancers to have, but that one was a rough one. She had been in hospital. She had come home for a few months. And in the last few days, it was incredibly rough. And my sister and I nursed her through that, which in a way was ridiculously hard, but at the same time, we knew that the hospital couldn't do anything else. So to have that time with just my sister and I, 24 hours looking back on it, it's like I'm glad we had that time because she did not want her end days to be in a hospital. She wanted to be in hospice. She went to school and grew up with nuns, and she that's what she wanted to return to because the hospice was run by nuns. And so, long story short, there wasn't enough beds in the hospice, and she had to go. She couldn't remain in the house anymore. Just the care needs were just too much for us. And then something happened. I don't know how it happened. She got a place in the hospice. And after really intense days, when we got there, we settled her in. We all stayed with her for a while. And then I think everybody just like, just like this big sigh. My dad stayed with her. My sister and I went off to do some things. And she died that night about 4 o'clock in the morning. The hospice phoned us to tell us she was actively dying, but they explained you won't get here in time. And somehow that didn't matter. We all went and sat with her, and I hadn't realized what a gift that was. There was no running about, there was no beeping, there was no lights, there was no machines. It was just quiet. And they invited us into the room with my mum, and we all just took turns to sit with her. And it was quiet. And I really feel that, she had been suffering. So it's like the bodily suffering had gone, but she was still very much there. And so it was it was unusual considering what she'd been through, that she was still there. The body was, the soul was beginning to depart, but she was still around. And even a few days later, and we had to go and do some paperwork, and they invited us to go into the chapel of rest, which we didn't realize that she was going into. It was beautiful, and me and my sister just sat with her. There was no time, there were limit. They're like, just come and find us when you're finished. And whew, there was lots of tears, but I was able to do that with my sister, and that was really nice. It was a whole different layer of saying goodbye. And again, I still felt that she was very much around us. And then I think it was that same day, I didn't realize at the time, but I was going to be launched into this huge thing of so much to do that I think you mentioned it in your book about, the idea of just like turning off your phone, don't do anything. And my sister said to me, turn your phone off. And I'm like, oh, but I was like, yeah, there's nothing to do. I turned it off. And as I turned it off, I saw something on Facebook from a very inspiring spiritual woman. And she does an awful lot of online prayer. And she was talking about one of the islands in the Outer Hebrides, and they were praying with Bridget. They were gathering as the tide came in and as the tide went out. There's just this prayer circle. And it was just like, whoa, if there was anything that was going to move me that day online, it was that. So my sister wanted to go to her favorite beach, and we went there, and it was raining, and we were both at different ends of the beach, and I just real everything sort of released, and the rain was in my face, intermingling with tears, and I just found this little old chant that was sung at the edge of the ocean, related to Bridget as being midwife of souls, been midwifed on to the back home to the next world. And I just sang that, and I was just I wasn't the tide wasn't coming in or going out, it was just there. And it just helped the idea of breathing and grief. And oh, to me that was my one gift within those few days of my mother dying, having that space in the hospice, which, that's what they do. They do silence and care. And they did that so well. And then having that time on the beach. And for me, those were the two things that really stand out in amongst the difficult times of my mother dying.
Mm, mm.
And so as all the rough stuff kind of fades away, those things come towards me in a really like, I would imagine in decades, if I live that long, do you know, that'll be the real jewels that I remember from it.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. I know there is something so, so sacred in that silence, in the stillness, when the soul is departing and has departed. It's a time that our souls really come forward in their fullness as well. You know,
Yeah.
that's what I found is that you become so much in your own awareness and presence because I think I say it somewhere in the book that the souls are dying into eternity and
Mm.
they are taking us into that timeless eternity, and so that's why I think, having that time and space is so important so you don't miss it.
Yeah, because like, you said in the book about different cultures that allow a time of withdrawing from normality.
Mm,
That's all I got. That's what I got because after that, it was full head into, there was 3 weeks until the funeral, and every minute was taken up by, it's almost the majority of my family are Irish and everyone's buried within 3 days.
right.
Why did it take 3 weeks? It's like the ridiculous admin I had to find the original documentation from 1902 to work out the exact person that purchased the layer in Glasgow City, one of the cemeteries, so the layer could be legally opened up again. Amazingly, I found it, but and it made me think of my it was opened for my mother's grandmother, and it made when I saw a name there, it made me think though that her uncle went through the same as I'm doing for my mum. So it made me think of him differently. He wasn't just that name on a piece of paper, but yeah, 3 weeks every day of just constant admin just took me. Yeah, that little moment I had on the beach, what could that be like if we were allowed that time to withdraw and like you're saying, just connect to everything that's going on?
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the experiences I had with my mum, and this was as she was dying, my mum was kind of ahead of her time with alternative therapies, and she loved color therapy. And so she firmly believed in the healing of color. And so she would ask me um, to come in every single night because we brought her home from the hospital. It was like, yep, she's dying. And we brought hospice in. She would ask me to come in to her room and to fill her with light. And so because she knew that I had this my own spiritual practice, and so she always loved pink, but I was feeling called to actually use gold. So I would sit there and I would just go into my deep breath and breathing practice, and I would begin at her feet, and I would see the golden light filling her body just very slowly, all the way, and she would be in pure peace.
Mhm.
Just she would, I would fill her, and I would do this night after night after night. And then one night, Jude, I could feel something shift. It was like, oh, hold on, something's shifting here. She's no longer just in the body. Something's really happening. And she exclaimed, she goes, oh, it is so light. And I was given to understand she was experiencing her own soul. her own essence, her own presence. And the next night she went, "Oh, it is so beautiful." And these are the words actually that Teresa of Avila, the great Spanish mystic, spoke about the human soul as being so beautiful and so light. And what I understood was, and what I experienced was, and I have experienced with other people dying, is they have these little forays into the other realms. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we think they're sleeping, or we think they're
Yeah,
dreaming,
yeah.
but they're actually moving in and out. It's like they're I call them the trial runs, they're preparing. They're going, "Oh, okay, I'm not quite in the body, but I'm not quite ready to leave yet. Okay, but oh, that's nice. That's light. Oh, but here I am back." And so it was so precious to share that with her, to really witness and feel her in one of those forays, and to see that she was experiencing her own soul apart from her body, because I knew, okay, when she's getting ready to leave, she's going to have a good sense of, you know letting the body go, and she's going to go where the soul was going. It just felt very, very precious, and for her being so attuned to color and light, and that's the other thing I discovered and have discovered working with so many. Everybody has their own way of dying.
You know, it makes me think in in Scotland, the to die a good death is to have a death of the pillow, to die at home with your friends and family around you, and then you're adding another individual layer, but rather than somebody like my brother died, gosh, he was only 36, but it was sudden and it was so that could be such a shock to the system. Like, whereas this is a gentle, a natural to be. And if you could imagine your mum had you and other people. So yeah, to die a death of the pillow with everybody surrounded and to realize that, yeah, you are dying, that must be, you've got a little bit of time perhaps to think about it. So,
Yeah. Yeah, no, she did. We actually, I was fortunate. I spent 7 weeks by her side,
wow.
and a lot of that time sleeping in the room with her, because she also went through a lot of different stages with depression, really
Mhm.
mental darkness. She wanted to die, then she wanted to live, and so I'll always remember this. This one is heartbreaking. Where I was sleeping on the floor on a mattress, and she had decided enough. Like, I've had enough, I want to go. And so she was really praying to go. And one morning she woke up and I saw her, and her eyes were kind of misty, and she was like looking around in wonder. And I thought, oh my God, I think she thinks she's died, because she was like,
Wow.
oh. And then, Jude, she looked down and she saw me and she went, oh. Because if I was in her reality, it meant she hadn't died. I felt so bad. I'm like, I'm so sorry, Ma. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I'm here. I'm sorry you're still here. And she just fell back on her pillow. But it was one of the stages.
Wow, 7 weeks you really got to experience
Yeah.
the
A
full,
lot.
yeah,
A lot. Yeah, yeah. From anxiety to beautiful memories. Oh, just out of unbidden memories that I'd never heard of.
nice, yeah.
Was just, and they were healing for me as well.
Yeah.
and so she did have time, and I, did ask her if there was anything she hadn't said to people. And so we had time. I spent a lot of time just sitting and allowing her the space to bring forward whatever was rising within her. So
Mm,
that yeah, really so many precious moments. And again with my sister and I being with her and helping her soul release from the body together. That was precious. It was like unbelievable. And my guides just came in and kind of took over, and I started chanting and doing various actions. And I realized, oh, we're unwinding her soul. And my sister had her hand on my mum's shoulder and her arm up, telling her to head to the light, Ma, go to the light. She was like it was just, it was a beautiful moment to share together. Yeah, and sacred. The sacredness in the air was palpable. And as you say, they're the things now that I remember more than, the more difficult times that
yeah.
we went through. So, yeah, yeah. So I think you do spend a lot of your time and work bringing forward keening. So I wanted you to give us like just a brief description of what keening is for you. And I know you spoke about spending that time on the beach with your mother's departure.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you can just tell us a little bit more about the keening, that would be, I think, to
I
hear.
think a lot of people, if they think about Keenan, they might think of the crying and the wailing. It is that, but it's also part of a larger ritual. And so there was all these steps of the Keenan woman. You can't just get into that. It's like you need to slowly. She would talk about her own grief. And sometimes, even although people might want to, are interested in Keenan, and a lot of us have experienced our own grief individually. And so, and we were never meant to grieve alone. It's a communal, and this is what the Keenan woman was doing. Somebody has died. She's bringing the community from this state of intense grief through this ritual that she's inviting people to voice their grief so that afterwards it's not gone away, but some of it will have changed a little bit. And then it's something that you can talk about afterwards. And so it's that idea of transformation of the grief to, for me, it's to change our relationship to grief, maybe befriend it a little bit more, not be so scared of it. I find half the time when I grieve for my mother, it's like I always end in a smile. It's like it comes out, but it just gets filled up and so sometimes like I like to almost take some of those steps of her ritual. Like so speaking that grief aloud in front of other people really can be really quite difficult, but it's almost enacting it. It's like forcing ourselves to do it because we're moving it out of the body. So she would be speaking, tapping into her own grief. And this all happens during the wake. When somebody dies, they're put into, hopefully they've had a death of the pillow that we were talking about to die at home. And then they're put in the coffin, an open coffin. But it's a celebration. The wake was a celebration of life, and the wake could go on for days. And so within that, you can't maintain that level of grief for 3 days. Nobody wants that. So it's like the wake was pretty wild. It still is, is of drinking and gathering, and you haven't seen your relatives for ages. And so, but at those certain times, the Keenan women, and there was often three of them, would go through their ritual of speaking about their grief, tapping into it. They would talk about the dead as well, to praise the dead, help them in one aspect to get into heaven. But there's also part of it is it's a very old, ancient ritual that talks about moving souls to the other world. So, people are stepping in both worlds of belief.
Mm. Mm.
And so she's working herself up and facilitating this ritual with other women. And it was always said that the queen had to break out at the right time.
Mm.
And I could only imagine what must it have been like to facilitate that. You can't be too much, you can't be not enough. You need to fit it to the fitting of the family and those that are gathered. But we have descriptions of the Keenan woman as being wild, of pulling her hair, scratching her face, or tearing her clothes. She's embodying grief, and this is an invitation for everybody else to be shocked and moved, but to get their own grief out. It's like the whole point of it is to move your grief because in our culture, we generally, I always say, it's like, God forbid anybody cries at a funeral because if you did, whoa, it would all come pouring out. But within that ritual, at the right time, she's in this place, in this liminal place. And when if you do work within liminal spaces, you're still hyper aware of what's going on around you. But one of her roles was the role of the psychopomp to help the soul move. And again, all done at the right time. And so 3 days and 3 nights, and I've read about, if there was a particular family member would come in, they've only just arrived, then that, for example, is a time where the keen would rise again because to invite them into that part of grieving. And then after this was finished, the body would be walked to the cemetery. And throughout Scotland and Ireland, there are roads known as coffin roads. They're just general roads, but they were the roads that the coffin was walked on. And lots of traditions as you were walking that coffin road that generally they are in the east and you're walking westwards towards the cemetery, that the feet and the head would be facing west, the journey of the soul. So the spirit couldn't be looking back towards home and go, I'm just going back home. It's like, no, this is your journey. This is the journey of the soul. And so coffin roads would meander over streams because it was thought spirits in the land could only travel in straight lines, so they couldn't be following this meandering, just keeping the body and the soul safe as it made that journey. And at times, if they met other people, again, raising the keen, but it was all finished when the body was lowered into the ground. And that was the end of. But just to imagine what that must have been like to see these women and to feel it, and for an invitation of a
Mm.
community to express your grief.
Mm. You know, I was living in the United States when I learned that my mother didn't have very long to live. And I think I'm going to read a little bit of this
Mm,
because this to me, I have done a lot of work with the body and sound and
mm,
sounding out the body, the emotions and everything. So it was a really poignant time um, for me. I think I'm just going to read it. So I just found out that she didn't have long to live, and I was in the US. I got in my car and drove to the lake that soothed me by day. It was night. Far away, house lights reflected dimly on the still, quiet waters. I turned off my intrusive car beams, and it began, slowly, unfamiliar, spluttering sounds, as I wound my way down into the pain. There it was, the howl of the child body. This body that had been birthed by my mother. It kept going, growling and reaching deeper as it found the wounded animal body left alone in the wilderness. As I howled and wailed, the lake received it all in silence, in reverence, in understanding. She gently lapped across the shore into my heart. The owls, too, wept that night. It was such a profound experience. And I emptied myself. I was
Mm.
hollowed out to the core. And yet, it was a gut-wrenching experience because I felt this too, that, losing your mother is something. We are born from her, and it ties into the mother of the earth, the mother of the heavens. To me, it was very, very deep. But this experience sort of set me up. It released so much so that then I was able to travel from the US to New Zealand and actually to be present with my mother. But
Yeah,
like you talk about the grief being kept in, came to New Zealand where they do keep it all in. You just kind of get on with life. And I would go and cry behind the garden shed or something like that. But like you mentioning the sea, during the time of tending my mum, when I needed to, I would go to the sea and I would place my feet in the sea and just allow whatever wanted to come spontaneously. Sometimes they were songs, just verbal songs coming through. Sometimes they were cries, sometimes shouts. Sometimes I would just dive and, in the waves, one wave after
yeah,
another, and just empty myself that way. But as you're saying, it's in that emptying that then the love rises and fills. And I think I talk about that in the book, that the only way to come through your grief is to break down. We're told, don't hold it all together, don't break down. And I'm saying, no, 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 break down, you know,
yeah, yeah,
break down, let it out, because this is how your heart heals. This is how your heart feels the love again of the loved one. And it doesn't stay in unspent grief. So,
yeah.
yeah, and there's something about being by the sea, by the waters, that I guess it's like you were talking about the Bridget prayer with the flowing in of the tide and out, but
Yeah.
and the waters of the womb, it's like that's what I think of too with the sea, that it's this great cosmic womb that's kind of, you know, um, gently rocking us as well in our grieving.
I felt almost like exactly I'm sort of moving into that rhythm. And with the Keenan woman, the way she I find with different groups, it's almost like what can we take from her ritual that might help us, all those different layerings. And, it's just a natural process, starting off with maybe some chants, some musical, like old chants to hold us in a way until we can learn to take over it, drop the music and hold it ourselves. But within it have all these different, within her the Keenan woman was almost like she was a bard. She was recording what had happened. So she might have been selecting from traditional motifs of Keenan songs, vocables of just words, and some of her own verses. And some of these songs are incredibly complicated in it, some skill. So I can't do that, but we can pick little bits to repeat and just keep going. and the depth in that space. And it just happens naturally. Some people let go while others want to hold on to the chant.
Mm.
And so there's time and space for everything in it. And, when I am on pilgrimage, to also be using ritual, there's a particular place. I take pilgrimages to the Hebridean Isle of Egg and to walk their coffin road. It's a village that was cleared in the Highland clearances. People were forcibly moved, put onto boats, and went to Nova Scotia. So we gather at the Well of the Holy Women and have a small ceremony. And I thought, well, this is a few years ago, I was like, why don't we walk the Coffin Road as a grief
Mm.
pilgrimage? And so I had somebody at the front that knew where they were going. I was at the back, and we all had our own space. We all set our intentions for this walk. And I thought, yeah, this will be nice. Oh gosh, it's like I couldn't even see for the tears. It was to walk this in a rhythmic walk. It's a pilgrimage. Some people considered the people that carried their dead along this. Some people thought of, before I told them, people thought of the people that walked, this was their last walk, is like to leave this island that they'd been there for generations, to be put on those boats. Some people walked with their own dead. And this is before my mother died, and I had such a vision, a feeling of my grandmother in very simple terms was saying, I will take your mother because she's my daughter when she died. And just the idea of my grandmother saying my mother was her daughter,
Mm.
it just all, and I could almost see my mother covered in a traditional shroud being handed over. And it was just a simple kind of, but that took so, like you said, that emptied me out, and everybody had a different experience. But to do something outdoors and to walk as a small ceremony, that was incredibly powerful. But my everything about my mother's death was unexpected, really. It's like I thought, those 3 weeks have been so busy. I had made a doll and I had wrapped her up in like a shroud, and it made me think, it's like, oh gosh, this was just like the vision I had. And I thought, I will unwrap this when I get there, because I didn't really have a lot of grief. But I didn't unwrap it when I got there because I don't have a lot of grief. And
Mm.
that is really, really, I think my mother was so open about her death. She started years before. I knew exactly what she wanted.
Mm.
She was Catholic. I knew every detail of the funeral. I helped her clear out, like, there wasn't a lot to be clearing out, but she just wanted to, I thought she was wanting to sort of tidy stuff up and get rid of stuff. Is like, I feel she was doing it for me, you know? It's like to go
Mm.
through and like hear the stories of this old teapot and things like that. But one year, the year before she died, she sent out loads of Christmas cards because she's like, I probably won't be here next year. So things like that, when she ended up in hospital and her nieces and nephew we all thought this was the end, and everybody was crying. She was counseling them. It's like, cry, it's okay. It wasn't the end, but it's only now I think, gosh, she was a remarkable woman. And but yeah, she counseled us all through her death. And I think I had so many, the idea of her going to hospital, leaving her house that she'd lived in for all these years, leaving the town was overwhelming, but that all happened before she died. So when it was happening, there was you're just concentrated on your mother, really. But
Mm.
I don't have a lot of grief, and like I put that down to her. I think I had expected, like as I said, my brother died when he was 36, and that was overwhelming as it should be. But no, it's like I mean, don't get me wrong, I feel sad, I miss her, I do cry, but I can really just smile because I feel that she is still with me in different ways. I feel that somehow she sees life through my own eyes in a way because,
Mm,
the same, she birthed me, And
mhm.
so I found that very unexpected. It's like, where's my huge big grief? But
Yeah.
she took us through a lot of that journey.
There's something to be really said about that, isn't it? That to what I'm hearing through you, Jude, is her acceptance.
Yeah, yeah,
And so her acceptance, is then passed and given to you.
yeah.
Right. And so it's which I think this is what we need to come to realize. This is something that I really would love for people to know, is to remove the tragedy from death. It's not a tragedy to die. And by that, I'm not saying you won't miss them, it won't be hard, it will be those things. But it's not tragic because it's not the end.
And
It's,
I think maybe if you grow up in like Western culture, as Francis Weller says, we're so grief phobic and death denying. And I
mm,
think that's exactly like, sure, Keenan's about that ritual, but to me, that works. It's cathartic, but at the same time, it's about befriending grief, sitting with, it's exactly that. It's about, and as an artist, to bring in art, we can make something, even a collage, but it can hold so much of what we're feeling.
yeah.
It holds it all with the shape, and it's got so many, it's a starting point. And I feel to me within Keenan, it's like art and ritual can really help us break that down and just become a little bit more familiar with grief because that's what is missing. It's like that familiarity
Mm,
is
mm.
is no wonder death's overwhelming when you have been brought up in a Western culture with those attitudes.
Exactly, exactly. I'm going to read just a part of a soul reflection here when the grief is coming, and it's called Your Time. And I'll read the whole thing. And it's talking about after the body has gone. Your body is gone. I cannot feel your spirit. You were here, but now my chest is dark and heavy. I don't even know if my heart is beating. Maybe every now and then a dull thud. I look for things to do, bringing you water, cleaning your sheets, rubbing your feet, anything. But that is all gone now, and so are you. I don't know what to do with all this emptiness. Be still and just be. Grief is with you. She is emptying you into nothingness. You are dying in grief's arms. Do not be alarmed. She is holding you and will rock you gently for a time. It is the way. Breathe and let yourself be unburdened of all the doing, of all the weight, and everything considered normal. You are right where you need to be. Be at peace. Breathe and be. This is your time. And this is your time, that's how I also feel like, oh, yes, then you could pick up some felt and make a doll, or then you could make a collage of your loved one, or then you could write a poem, or then you could just, allow a song to come through. And so yes, it's getting back, first of all, the permission, and that this is perfectly normal. This is this is part of living. Um, and then I love the creating, because the creating then is bringing new life, isn't it? You know, it's
Yeah.
you're still honoring the dead and honoring, but you're also bringing it, you and them, into new life. So you're actually both traveling together. Um, and
Yeah.
that's what I found with, I've had a lot of people I know die. And once that initial shock and the initial grief passes, um, I had that ability for those souls to come and communicate very easily, and I see them and we talk and everything, and it's like, oh, they're still here. It's just another realm. It's just another place. I know a great Irish Celtic priest who he says when we die, we actually don't go anywhere. We're still right here.
Yeah,
Now,
but what if we had been brought up with that idea and the community to like going through with the Keenan woman? It's like we'd have such different. But then again, it's like when I think of my mother, helping, she had accepted her grief. It's like, well, why have I always thought, I hadn't realized that her influence throughout my whole life has given me this attitude to death that, apart from a death that comes out of nowhere when somebody's 36, that's a whole different thing.
yeah.
But,
But even that, Jude, I have to tell you this. This happened to me when I was 19 years old. And I was in Italy and having a passionate love affair with an Italian. And, and then I decided one time that, yeah, okay, it's time for me to leave now and carry on with my travels. And he didn't want me to leave. And he took out a knife and he said, now you will see the passion of an Italian. And he demanded my passport and those were the days of traveler's checks, demanded my passport and traveler's checks so that I wouldn't leave. And I was like, no, you're not getting them. And he lunged at me with the knife at my throat. And in that moment, I left my body. And in that moment, I was like an observer watching this play out. And my thought was, huh, how interesting. So this is how I'm going to die. And it was interesting and it was intriguing. It wasn't tragic that I was 19. It wasn't tragic that it was going to be a violent death. It was just, so this is how it's going to happen. And that has stayed with me. But then he grabbed the passport and traveler's checks and ran off, and the took his knife, and it never actually pierced through, and I came back into my body. But that has stayed with me. That yes, it is a tragedy for those who are left and very
yeah,
shocked.
yeah,
But for those of us who it's happening to, it's like, okay, so this is how it's going to be. And so
yeah.
that is something I've held on. So I have can hold a very like a lightness to all manner of death, because I know that that one who is leaving is merely just continuing their journey. So, but as you say, for those of you who are left and not
Yeah.
expecting, then it is
Yeah.
incredibly shocking. But um, that's part of. what my work that I want to do also is to give a whole different perspective to how we respond to death and to how we hold it. Yeah,
And
it's
yet, it needs so many conversations, and
mm,
it's like that's where we reclaim grief, really, isn't it? It's like it's the conversations and
mm,
sharing our experiences. It's like I always wanted to hear experiences of when people's parents died because I had such anticipatory grief. It's like I've done my grieving while they were alive, and yet when my mum died, it's like it's
I
not what I expected because
mm,
from the anticipatory blah, 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 grief, but also with the way she is, it's like with her attitude to grief and dying. Yeah.
mm, 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 beautiful. Well, let's just feel into we're almost at our time here. I wonder if there's a prayer or reflection that wants to come forward. Let's see. This is called the Soul Land of Freedom, and it's a conversation between a soul that has departed and a soul that's still here on earth. I am feeling so light. If I think of somewhere, there I am. It is so expansive. What is it like, this expanse? It is like the vast ocean in the night, endless waves of life potential, forming and changing at will by thought. Do you feel lost there in all that space? I cannot be lost because it is who I am. It is who you are. We are like the stars in the cosmic womb, shining our love wherever we go. Does it ever end, this expanse? Love does not end. Love does not begin. We are all bornless and ever being born. When will I join you? When it is time. Remember, even the angels do not know this. Sometimes it is so hard on this earth, so much pain and sorrow, the energy dense and narrow. There are days I want to take flight. And so you can, right where you are. Come deep within. Let go into love and trust. These are your best cosmic guides. I love you. I love you too. Trust in this love to open the way. So I think that that's what I would like to leave our listeners with, is to trust in the love in your heart, to trust in the love of your loved one, to trust in the love of your ancestors and those who have gone before you, and to trust in your own inner wisdom and your own inner soul, remembering, remembering the ways to live, remembering the ways to die, remembering the ways to grieve, remembering the ways to live in joy. And to know that you have that wisdom within you, and that the ancestors' wisdom will come through you if you ask. I say we all knew how to die once. We now just need to remember. So I want to thank you so much, Jude, for this conversation, for the work that you do, um, for bringing forward the precious times with your mum. May she journey well.
Mhm.
I'm sure she's having a grand time. Yeah, yeah. And I love that with your grandmother coming and taking her daughter home.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had an experience of working with the ancestors and opening the realms and seeing the ancestors walking up the valley back home. Oh, it was it was just the most magnificent sight. I will never forget it. Just they were walking back home, and they all knew where they were walking. It was beautiful. So now, if what we're going to do is place Jude's links. Can you tell us the name of your website, Jude?
The website is pathoftheancestralmothers.com. The website is called Reclaiming Keening, and there'll be links there to find me on Substack or a non-Substack newsletter, as well as this September I'm launching a new course which is called Reclaiming Keening. It goes through the framework of the historical aspects of the Keenan woman, going through what themes can we take from that and work with them to help transform grief, and practical applications of, for example, a doll making project, how to hold a Keenan circle, and also in September the new grief pilgrimages for 2027 will be launching, and you can sign up if you want to be notified when they launch. So it's all there.
Perfect. And we'll put all of Jude's links below so you can look at that. And on June the 24th, I'm going to be offering a masterclass. It's a virtual masterclass, both live and recorded, at the Sophia Institute. And this is going to be based on the book. We're going to really dive very deeply into what is presence. Like, it's a word that gets bandied around a lot. So we're going to really look at our own inner presence and to feel into the depth of our soul and what our soul is wanting us to know and where it is calling us right now. And then we'll be moving into practices, a beautiful practice to invoke the archangel of comfort or the energy of comfort. This was, I had a client who called me saying her brother was dying and he was extremely agitated and he had been an addict. So he was so agitated and she didn't know what to do. She called me. So together we chanted the particular chant for this angel of comfort, Nahumiel. And as we chanted and as that energy came to him, his agitation ceased. It got less and less and less and less. And then we were praying for him that he would know that he was being held in love. And all the times that he hadn't experienced that, that was now happening. And it was such a palpable and beautiful witnessing of the power of this energy of comfort. So we will be learning that chant and learning, because I think at this time many souls are in need of comfort. We're all dying to something, and then there are so many people dying. We will also go into the Divine Mother of Tenderness and understanding that Divine Mother as the great womb or the great cosmic ocean of consciousness from where we were all born and from to where we will all return, so that we will work with prayer and feeling with that and learn simple practices of how we can help a soul let go and pass. So it's not psychopomp work at all, but it's just simple words and actions that how we can help a soul come to know they've died, because often souls don't know they've died, and how we can help them come into that consciousness and continue their journey very, very easily. So you will see the links for that below, as well as the book, Presence, Bringing the Soul into Dying and Grieving, and my website, megandon.life. So I thank you all for listening. Um, and I hope that we will all establish a much more intimate relationship with dying and with death. And as I write in the book, death is not a thief, but your lover. So may we come to know the fullness of love in life and in death. So once again, thank you, Jude, and thank you to all the listeners. Bye for now.
Thanks.